It really was about my background, and really since coming to Southbury, although it wasn't my original intention when we moved here, I have been involved in various aspects of Southbury public life. And not that I want to brag, but only because you asked. I asked her to ask, but no. So I guess my first involvement was with the Inland Wetlands Commission, and I think I see a lot of faces that were there when we had the proposal for the, blanking on the name, but the project that was going to go up on Wheeler Road. Fairways, that's right. Where we just saw, you know, the, let's say powers that be wanted to just push through something very quickly. We stopped them. Unfortunately, the legal process and things we saw in from the way, well, let's say the burden of proof had shifted for Inland Wetlands Commissions, kind of shifted beneath our feet there. But again, one of the things I saw as an Inland Wetland Commissioner was the fact that, you know, First Selectman really wasn't there behind us. We were sort of hanging on our own. Never really took a position. I think you can count on me that I would want to get involved and at least have my views as a First Selectman understood before a commission like that. So Inland Wetland Commission, I served there, then went on to the Board of Finance, where I'm currently serving, having worked through a couple of budgets, as well as introduced some new ideas about how we need to be better about reserves, financial reserves. We were concerned that we were over-reserving money. Now that's become an issue, but I brought that up over a year ago. Also been involved with the Southbury Historic District Commission, which is responsible for the Main Street Historic District, and from there moved on to a position known as the Historic Preservation Coordinator, for the first time bringing together all the various historic organizations, whether Historic Society, the Land Trust, the Historic Tree Commission, the Historic Building Commission, bringing them all together to actually do something, which was the development of two very interesting and very well received brochures about our historic districts, and encouraging more and more citizens to get out and appreciate that. On a non-profit basis, I was on the board of directors as well as executive director for the Pomperaug River Watershed Coalition, board of directors of the Southbury Historic Society, and gee, there's something else that I...
Library. Not a library.
No. I use it a lot, but I've never been in the library a lot. I should have mentioned I also represent the town regionally on what's known as the Western Connecticut's Convention and Visitors Bureau. I think that's enough. There must be something else, but I can't. Rita?
Well, I know that I have occasionally bugged the current administration about an energy policy, an energy commission. Maybe we have one, but I don't know where it is. I recently saw in Voices that Newtown has an official energy commission. That, plus the fact that so much of the town is electrically powered, and there is a brand new 2010 energy bill for Connecticut, which is really, I don't know how much money they have, but there's certainly perks for municipalities, and I hope Heritage Village, which is about 1/5 or maybe more. What is your position on just officially doing an energy commission to do something?
If I could use that to just talk about one thing, I don't think she's here, but many of you know Fran Owen. And Fran gave me a plan that she helped put together back in 1997. And one of the points in that plan for Southbury, and one of the things that she pointed, or her group pointed out back then, was the need for a professional grant writer. And the reason that's so important is we're finding, as time goes by, the state and the federal government give out so much money through grants. We missed a big opportunity here in Southbury, 3 years ago I want to say it was, might have been 4, that just by, if we'd taken a concerted action to get people to sign up for energy conservation activities, not spending any money, just signing up, that would have entitled the town to free solar panels. But because we just didn't have the wherewithal to to think about that and move on it, we didn't do it. Similarly, this came to pass yesterday, looking over here at Valentine Park. Lots of erosion came about yesterday. This has been identified for a while. We've got a bad erosion problem. We missed out on getting a grant for $180,000 that we're entitled to. We won the grant. We should have gotten the money this year to start the work on it, but we've been so slow about putting the paperwork together that now it'll probably be, not that we lost the money, but it'll be next year before we have the opportunity to spend it. We've kind of missed out on this cycle. So what I find is, by sort of this kind of thinking that, well, again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, as opposed to going out and looking for new opportunities and new ways of doing things, we keep missing, you know the expression, waiting for your ship to come in is a sure way to miss the boat. And that's what we seem to do over and over here. Now, on the Energy Commission in particular, you've mentioned this to me before, and quite honestly, I haven't really put together a plan on this. But it's clear to me that it is a concern. A couple of other people have written me to say, what can we do? What can you do about my electric rates? And you know, my first reaction is, well, I don't know what I can do as First Selectman. So I don't want to overpromise. I don't want to make commitments that I can't do. And on the other, oops, there's Fran Owen. I don't know if you heard, Fran, I just mentioned your name and you're here. It's amazing. Let's see if I say Barack Obama. So other people have mentioned this. I'm a little hesitant to overcommit. Hopefully, maybe I did want to say this. Art said, is it the 12th or the 15th I'm coming to? 15th. You know, I'm not going to say, some of you might say, well, I heard what he had to say today. I'm not going to come back and hear him again. But I hope on the 15th, what you'll hear me talk about is our position papers. We've had 3 position papers so far. We have about 4 more underway and a couple of other titles that we're working on. And these are substantive positions that I believe are very important for Southbury. If you haven't seen the 3 that have come out so far, please look on the website. And one is on the need for a strategic plan. The town does not have a strategic plan. It has a couple of other sub-plans, but nothing that ties it all together and says, does this really hold water? The second one was about information technology utilization, something the town has been very slow about doing to make the town more efficient, and just as importantly, to make it more transparent, open, and available for people to see how town government is being operated. And the third was the future of the Southbury Training School campus, which has gotten a lot of people talking and thinking. And a lot of these ideas are more to show, again, that we are a committee, a team that wants to think about the future, not wait for it to happen. Some of our ideas, people might come back and say, well, you know, that's an interesting proposal, but did you think about this and think about that? And that to me is wonderful. If it gets a conversation going to show where our ideas can be better, I am all for that. We saw a little bit of that happen here 4 or 5 months ago with the need for a sidewalk to lead to the library. And I think I generated some ideas and some other thinking about how that might be solved. Maybe it's not the right idea. I think Ted at one point thought it was a good idea. I haven't followed up with them to see if that's the way they're going to go. But that's what I'm about. It's not saying I have the solution, but I want openness. I want a board of selectmen that's willing to look at new ideas, not have the first response to a new idea being no, and then say, but tell me about it. But we see a lot of that. The answer is no, without even wanting to hear what the suggestion is. So we need less of that, we need more openness. And I think we need to talk some more about an energy commission. All right, so with that, let's all make sure we pay attention to Lorraine. I'm sorry?
Ed, you mentioned grants. I have in my cluster a professional grant writer whom I've offered to the various orders of the village, and nobody has picked her up. I don't know why. The other thing I'd like to know is, you know we're in the throes of an election. Whether or not we pass the budget or we don't pass the budget. And I was just wondering what the town could do to alleviate the budget against our older citizens here, so that we won't have to fight it every year. We go through this every single year.
When you talk about so this was a question about the town budget.
Right here.
Oh, the Heritage Village budget. Well, I'll tell you, what I think I can do as First Selectman, one, we always have to be clear, this is kind of awkward, we have to be clear that there are various entities, various organizations in town with specific responsibilities. Region 15 is one, Heritage Village is one, Pomperaug Health District is one. So you got to be careful to recognize those boundaries. But what I said to Ted, and I won't try to say his last name, although I do work at it, is that one of the things that I would do as First Selectman is we would meet, whoever is in his position, at least every other month, if not every month. We would sit down and have conversations. What I see our First Selectman hasn't been doing, whether it's the Pomperaug Health District, Region 15, Heritage Village, these very important organizations, is have a continuing dialogue. And so as a result, the time when they discuss things is when there's a crisis, or one group wants something from the other group. I grew up, or at least my professional life, I grew up with the expression, you make your friends before you need them. How do you do that? You keep talking, so that you learn firsthand, over time, what are the priorities for this person, what are the concerns, and then you look for areas where you can work together. Then you look for areas where you can collaborate and maybe save costs. Maybe you can do things from a maintenance point of view, that you can share things and say, maybe we don't need two of these. I've gotten shot down on this, but I'll keep trying, is we need to think about consolidating some organizations that maybe no longer can exist like themselves. I'll tell you, I don't want to get too specific, but I'll tell you a story from 2 years ago. At a budget meeting, I asked the question, because we had a lot of problems with overtime for our 911 dispatchers. We're basically a small town. You need to keep it. You can't have 911 just 8 hours a day. It doesn't make any sense. Emergencies happen all the time. But to keep people there 24/7, if somebody gets sick, then the next thing you know, you've got somebody else doing double shifts. So it ends up a lot of overtime, and we were finding that to be a financial problem. So I said, why don't we think about regionalizing our 911 system? Why don't we combine with the other towns around us? Well, the response was, we can't do that. We've tried that 10 years ago. We can't do that. So I think in 10 years, some technology might have changed, so maybe we could look at that. And then the second response was, well, but it's so confusing, because you have Main Street North and Southbury, and you have Main Street South and Woodbury. They'll never know where to go. I said, New York City has one dispatch center for all 5 boroughs. It seems to me if they could figure it out, the technology to do it is there. Well, they said, we'll look into it. And of course, they never did, until they were confronted, surprise, surprise, that the Southbury Training School said, we can no longer keep a dispatch center. You need to do it for us. And now, all of a sudden, they're having a look at doing this. But that's what I mean by being proactive and looking for areas where you're finding you have diseconomies of scale because you can't afford to keep this operation going. Is there a way that could combine with the town? And we have one group of people doing that. Remove some middle management maybe, and share resources that way. So that's the kind of continuing discussion I'd like to have with the president of HVMA and see if there are ways on an ongoing basis we look to areas where we can help each other. Hopefully that leads to it. At the same time, my thing is to make town hall more efficient. That's why I came out early to talk about technology. I think my career says information technology can make an organization more efficient and run better. And I think we can do both of those in town hall, and that should lower our taxes and the taxes you have to pay to town hall. Hope that begins to answer it. I don't know, Art, I'm glad to answer questions, but I don't. Okay.
What is your feeling about the lack of a theater in Southbury, a concert hall, or a movie house?
Well, I have to say it comes up extremely often. The first thing, and so I think we need to be more concerted about that. What we're hearing, though, is kind of interesting, because a lot of people will tell me one of the problems in Southbury is you've got these two groups. You got these folks in Heritage Village, and they don't care about the kids, and you got these young people, and they don't care about these older senior people over here at Heritage Village. And how are you going to bring them together? And you know what's interesting about the two groups? They both want a theater. They both want a place where people can be entertained, whether it's movies or musicals or live theater, community theater. So that, to me, it's kind of interesting that both groups are coming together on that. So, or at least saying they see some need for that. Now, making it happen is another thing. I don't think this town, the town budget, is going to make something happen. I don't see us being able to tax people. What I do see, and I do hear, is there is a lot of financial wherewithal to make something like this happen. We have a very, I think, creative group. Hopefully I know some of you have seen them in the Heritage Village, I think is the last edition, put on a well-received musical this summer over at the high school, Sound of Music. This is the Newberry Musical Theater, and I think it's their 4th or 5th year. And they are trying very hard to get a theater going. Not only so they do one production every summer, but so that it's a year-round music and theater, musicals as well as drama. And they've got some interesting ideas. I've been working with them on one. I don't know if that's going to work out. It's a little too premature to really tell you about it because I don't want to ruin it. But they claim they've got some financial backers who are saying, if you can find the venue, we've got money we could put behind this. Whether it's from Southbury or some of the other areas around here that would like to see something like the Playhouse Corner come back. But the one thing I can say that you'll see me, again, we haven't come out with this position paper, but I know it's going to be in it. That's one nice thing being ahead of the campaign. There's some things I know I can say. And that is about a YMCA. Now, a YMCA can be many different things. And it can have a social hall that has a theater as a part of it. But we've been approached as the town of Southbury by the Waterbury YMCA, and who is responsible for this geography. Just as an aside, most of you should be aware that we have a YMCA summer camp up at the Southbury Training School. That's been going for many years, and most of the children who go to that summer camp are from Southbury. So there's already a need being met for YMCA facilities here. But they'd like to see a year-round facility. And that doesn't mean, sometimes I think of a YMCA, I think, oh, you mean a weight room. That's not what they want to do. They want to create facilities that meet the needs of a community. So what I'm committed to do if I'm elected is that we will create an exploratory committee to look at the feasibility and work with the, by the way, work with the YMCA people, but work with them to look into the feasibility of creating or establishing a YMCA here in Southbury that would have facilities that, at least in my mind, I think would include a theater, or at least a multi-purpose facility that could be used community-wide for things like theater, movies, and other activities. So I think it's an important thing. The other fact that's kind of disturbing to me, and again, I'm trying to be positive, we've seen that the youth here in Southbury lack positive venues for their activities. And some people feel that's what led to some of the sad things that have happened in the last 3 or 4 years, including the murder that happened, or the bizarre murder that happened over at the Berkshires, as well as some of the drug overdoses. So a year and a half ago, some of the selectmen, Ed Gittens and Chad Ladman, got together and they created a survey to find out from teens, Pump Rock High School students, what do you think you need? Or what is missing in Southbury, and what would you like to see? What would you use? And the high school picked up on this. They collaborated. They said, we'll make this survey happen. They wanted initially to go to all the seniors. The high school said, forget that. Let's go to all the students. Let's get them all. The IT department of Region 15 consolidated all the reports and the results. That was given to the Board of Selectmen last September. They created a committee, reviewed the results. In January, they came forward with, I think it was 5 recommendations. And what do you think has happened since then?
Nothing.
Meanwhile, something I didn't know about, the Paparock Health District got a very interesting grant from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC. I'm probably not using the right acronym, but it's CDC. And for what they call Achieve Communities. I'm not going to be able to tell you what Achieve stands for, but it's CDC's belief that we're never going to get a handle on this healthcare problem unless we start to identify where these problems start. And that's the quality of our communities. Obesity, cancer, all these chronic diseases, they feel fundamentally come from poor habits that are created by having communities that don't really instill some good behaviors from the beginning. So they got some money to create a committee to see what they could do with Southbury. And what do you think the first thing they thought they should do is, let's do a survey. Some of you might have seen them over at Kmart about 3 weeks ago. I saw them there doing a survey. Well, what are you doing here? And that's how I learned about the program. And much to my surprise, our First Selectman is on the board of this, or the committee overseeing this grant. So I said to my friend Neil Lustig, who's the director over at the Health District, I said, did you know about the survey that they just did over at Region 15 about what youth says they need? He said, no, nobody told me about that. This again is an example of one hand not talking to the other. So I told him about this survey, and I said, well, I'll get you the results. But I said, well, what are you learning from your survey? He said, well, you know, it's amazing. We've got a couple of multiple choice questions. But the final question is, what do you think is missing in Southbury? And you wouldn't he said, you wouldn't be, you'd be amazed, Ed. Most people say what we're missing is a YMCA. Oh my God, it keeps coming back. So, you know, again, there's a lot of people with the same ideas, but without the right leadership to move these things forward, they'll just stay on a shelf, and we'll sit, and 10 years from now, we'll all look back and say, yeah, weren't we talking about doing something like that 10 years ago?
How about the senior center in the evening for the teenagers? Can't do it because of the grant.
Well, I mean, there's this issue, and I've never gotten to the bottom of it, so I've taken it as gospel, that the conditions of the grant were that for a certain number of years, it could only be used by seniors, and that restricted its use. I think there's some time limit with that, and we're still, as people have told me, we're still living with that. But, you know, I think on the other hand, when I look around, we have a lot of facilities that aren't fully utilized. One of the things I might challenge you with, when I say you, not you, but Heritage Village, is some of your facilities. Maybe they could be made more open to the community and not seen as Heritage Village only.
Take it to the board.
I mean, I didn't hear what you said, but
I said take it to the board.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Well, but I think it's got to be a two-way street, would be my point. If the Heritage Village wants more from the town, it's got to be willing to open itself up more to the village. It's got to be a two-way street. Okay?
There is a certain amount of openness when we have.
Can't hear you, Betty.
I'll try and repeat it.
There is a certain amount of openness when we have some fine musical programs. We have allowed some outside people to come in and enjoy them. They're usually paid for by everyone who goes to them, not just the outsiders.
I think Betty's pointing out there is some precedent for opening events, but I was sort of saying, you know, if it's known ahead of time that Sarah Cook Hall is not going to be used as an auditorium, you know, on Tuesday nights, I'm obviously just making this up off the top of my head, you know, maybe that becomes available. We're talking about like the theater group. They can come and use it for a Tuesday night to do a rehearsal. Again, I'm just saying it's, the key point is if the town is going to help the village more, then I think it's got to think about how can it help the town some more. Not to say that there haven't been many people living in Heritage Village who have contributed a phenomenal amount to the town in terms of time, energy, experience that has made this a much better town than it would be without the village.
Since Southbury is such a large proportion of Southbury population is seniors, I think I'm going to paraphrase JFK. And just like there should be an energy commission, there should be a coherent program dealing with seniors. I think there should be a senior corps where it's not only ask what Southbury can do for Heritage Village, but what can Heritage Village do for Southbury other than pay taxes? I don't want to holler, we pay taxes, etc. Because there's a tremendous resource for volunteerism. I know it's decreased, but it needs to be focused. Volunteerism and mentoring, all kinds of things that needs to be supported and applauded. And I want to recommend that, because that does not happen.
Well, again, I'd like to, I'd love to talk some more about that on the 15th, because volunteerism is way too important an element of why this town is great and has low taxes. So but I believe we're not doing enough to encourage volunteerism, to get the most from our volunteers, and to recognize them. And I think the First Selectman, Board of Selectmen could do a lot more. I think they misuse volunteers from time to time, and that concerns me.
Heritage Village Foundation has had recently an audit by the Internal Revenue Service. And there's a possibility that we may be in violation of federal law by not charging people who are not residents of Heritage Village a larger entrance fee for the use of the facilities that we invite them to. So we're looking into that aspect as well.
I'd like to hear more about that, because I didn't know. I'm sorry.
I agree with you that running for office in Southbury, if you're not a Republican, is a challenge. What I don't understand is when you volunteer to serve on a committee in Southbury, the first thing they ask you is what your party affiliation is. And you stand in line then until the slots are filled. If there's an empty one, then you get it if you're not a Republican. Why is that?
That's again, the one that was most flagrant is because Lorraine, hope I didn't scare her away.
No, I'm here.
Brought up about the library. We have, a very energetic and I think proven library board. I think our library is something we're all proud of, and we'll go by there. And Ken Karen was instrumental in making that happen. A Democrat, been around for a while here in Southbury. You'd go into Ken's living room and it was strewn with papers as he was managing this library project several years ago. Stepped down from the library board, became a member of the Board of Selectmen. Then after 4 years, he said, I think my time is up. I want to turn it over to newer people. And so he wasn't on any board at that point. An opening came up where a Republican left the library board, left the area, moved to Oxford. Yeah, some people don't get it right, but moved to Oxford, so there was a vacancy. This man was a Republican. The library board recommended that Ken Karen be asked to join the library board and fill that position. And so they made that recommendation. We, as the Democratic Town Committee, said we think Ken's a great guy. I think he would be excellent. Got all the experience that you would want and more to be on the library board. And the Board of Selectmen, or the Republican Town Committee, I should say, said, we want to put our own guy there. A person who had no experience with libraries, not that it means you can't learn, but no experience with that. He was the Republican Town Chair, had never served on anything in town, so they wanted to give him some experience in serving, and basically said no to Ken and put a Republican in that position. That to me is when you put party way above. I could understand if you had two people who are, let's say, both inexperienced, both looking for a first time to be on a commission, and maybe they say, okay, we'll go with a Republican. But to me, this wasn't even a fair choice. This was one person very committed, extremely knowledgeable about libraries. Why don't you say, for the good of the town, let's do it. So when I see things like that, it goes back to when I mentioned one of the reasons I'm running is because we've got to change the politics here and say, we need all people to feel they can participate, and we really pick the best that Southbury has to offer, not because of the initial that's after your name.
Just a question, is that position with the library a paid position?
No.
It's
The
an
only
unpaid.
paid position that's elected is the first selectman. I think I'm right on that. Everything else is a volunteer. So, I mean, when you think about it, it's a lot of people who are volunteering. Some are better than others, some attend more meetings than others, but it's a lot of volunteerism that makes this town work. And again, on the 15th, I'll talk more about that. Stay tuned. Okay? Thank you. Thank you.